Hello, everyone, and welcome. The Earl Carl Institute is proud to present this webinar today to raise awareness on the 7th Annual Wrongful Conviction Day in 2020. The theme of this year's Wrongful Conviction Day is Fighting for Injustice and Accountability. At the Institute, we offer free legal services for low-income individuals, and we are housed at the Thurgood Marshall School of Law at on the TSU campus. And my name is Whitney Kubik, and I am the Associate Director for the Center for Criminal Justice at the Earl Carl Institute. And in that role, I'm also the supervising attorney for the Innocence project at Thurgood Marshall School of Law. Our project is part of a larger network called the Innocence Network, and the Innocence Network has put together the 7th Annual Wrongful Conviction Day, and we are gathering together virtually and on social media around the U.S. today to try to raise awareness about the issues related to wrongful convictions in order to try to help identify and prevent them in the future. And in order to identify and prevent them, we need to know what causes them. And we know that the leading causes of wrongful conviction are eyewitness misidentification, junk science, false confessions, government misconduct, snitches, and bad lawyering. Now, there can be many causes for a false conviction. There could be 1, 2, 3, or there could just be one of these present. And so today, because of the theme of the Wrongful Conviction Day and calling for accountability, we are focusing on government misconduct. And on September 1st, the National Registry for Exonerations released a 218-page report in which they reviewed exonerations. We're not going to share the whole report. We're just going to share some significant findings. We'll share a link to the entire report in the chat if you're more interested in that. But some of the significant findings include official misconduct contributed to 54% of wrongful convictions. Concealing exculpatory evidence was the most common type of misconduct, and it occurred in 44% of exonerations. Black exonerees were slightly more likely than whites to have been victims of misconduct at 57 to 52%, but this gap is much larger among exonerations for murder, with the numbers being 78% to 64%, especially those with death sentences, when the numbers are 87 to 68%, and for drug crimes at 47 to 22%. Police officers committed misconduct in 35% of cases. They were responsible for most of the witness tampering, misconduct in interrogation, and fabricating evidence, as well as a great deal of concealing exculpatory evidence and perjury at trial. Prosecutors committed misconduct in 30% of cases, and prosecutors were responsible for most of the concealing of exculpatory evidence and misconduct at trial, as well as a substantial amount of witness tampering. In the wake of the death of George Floyd, we have seen a powerful social justice movement develop across the U.S. as people start to see what we as practitioners have known for a while now, and that is that our criminal justice system is severely broken. And the statistics related to wrongful convictions support the calls for reform in the criminal justice system that are occurring across the U.S. Black people are disproportionately affected by wrongful conviction. While representing only 13% of the U.S. population, 49% of exonerees are Black. Murder convictions led to exonerations with Black defendants were 22% more likely to include police officer misconduct than those with white defendants. Innocent Black people are more likely to be wrongfully convicted of crimes than white people, with 3.5% or 3.5 times more likely in a sexual assault charge, 7 times more likely in a murder charge, and 12 times more likely in a drug charge. Black exonerees spent an average of 10.7 years wrongfully incarcerated before their release, and that is about 45% longer than white exonerees. And again, I just want to thank you for today, and I want to thank you for participating. And at this time, I would like to turn it over to Zara Whitfield-Buck, our Associate Director for the Center of Government Law, so that she can introduce the rest of the program for you today. Thank you.
Thank you, Whitney. Next, we have 2 videos that we are going to present. The first video is the story of Christopher Ochoa. Christopher Ochoa was exonerated after being wrongfully convicted. He served 13 years. The story that brought him to his conviction is that Nancy DePriest was raped and murdered in her workplace in Austin, Texas in 1988. Christopher Ochoa pled guilty to the murder of DePriest, and his friend Richard Danziger was convicted of rape. Ochoa had confessed to the crime and had implicated Danziger. It would be discovered, however, that his confession was coerced and that neither man had anything to do with the slaying or raping of DePriest. This is the story of Christopher Ochoa. I can't hear the volume.
We apologize for this. Zara, would you please, before you share your screen, there is a link to click on your bottom left corner that says share computer sound.
Can you hear it?
So Gloria has the screen.
Okay, you have to unshare.
Okay.
Can y'all hear it?
No.
You have, okay.
Exit full screen. It's unmuted. Can y'all hear me?
I can hear you.
Yes.
Okay. Can you hear it?
Yes.
Volume is very low though.
It's all the way up.
Okay, Gloria, unshare your screen.
Okay.
Okay, unshare your screen
Yeah,
completely.
you gotta take that, go to the share screen button and unshare.
Okay.
At the bottom.
Okay. Close.
No, we want you to unshare it. Don't close it. Unshare it.
Okay, open it up, Gloria. I'm going to take control, okay? So
Okay.
now go ahead and start and see if it will play properly.
Okay.
Unshare the screen.
It is.
You're sharing a team screen.
Hold on. Okay. Gloria?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Click on the screen share button.
Okay.
When you click on that button, on the left of the share button, you'll see it says share computer sound.
Got it.
Click that and then click the share button.
Okay. Share.
was on a Friday. I was working at a Pizza Hut, at my Pizza Hut where I work, and then those two detectives that came to talk to me, they wanted to talk to me about a burglary that happened, but it was a lie. That I was already a suspect. But they were saying, if you know who did it and you don't tell us, you can get the death penalty. Like that was, I was like immediately within 10 minutes, the death penalty. You get the death penalty. If you know anything and you don't tell us, then we're going to go for the death penalty. So this went out for a couple of hours. It was a good cop, bad cop routine. The bad cop came in and grabbed my arm and tapped the vein on my. So this is where the needle's going to go if you don't cooperate and tell us. Like this is, and I'm going to make sure I'm there to watch. And at some point, he said, "We think it was your roommate. He's in the next room." He said, "Your roommate's about to turn state's witness against you." He was a Latino detective. And he said, "You know, it's really horrible that in these kind of cases, the white guy always gets the deal and the minority gets the bad end of the stick. So in this case, why don't you flip the tables? The white guy can get the bad end of the stick and you give us a statement and you can walk." So he went through what he wanted me to say. I just repeat, or they typed that last statement and then saying that I was in there doing these horrible things. I signed it and then I was arrested. Problem, this attorney that they appointed me, he was just out of law school. Hadn't been practicing 5 years. And for you to take a death penalty case, I wouldn't take it. I'm a practicing lawyer, I wouldn't. So I got upset and I went to try to fire my attorney. I told the judge I want to fire my attorney. They didn't fire him. So at that point, I'm in there 6 months and my mom is starting to call me. She says, "You know what? They're going to give you a death penalty. You're going to die." I said, "I didn't do this, Mom. I'm not going to." "No, I know you didn't do it, but they're going to kill you." I remember the tears that started forming in my eyes. I didn't want the other prisoners, inmates, to see me because that's a sign of weakness. So when I heard that, I hung up. And I went to my cell and then that's when I made the hardest decision in my life that nobody really understands it, even to this day. Nobody. Two detectives came to see me. One, a detective from the Austin Police Department in Texas, and a Texas Ranger. They came to talk to me, interview me, not about another crime, but about the same crime. That's when I wrote the Wisconsin Innocence Project. I wrote them a letter, explaining everything from the beginning of the interview, how it went down. And I said, "I think there's DNA evidence." So they took it. I got the call from the attorneys. They said, "You know, the DNA tested said you're not the donor and neither is your roommate. But it includes a guy named Marino." He said, "Marino." And he says it casually, like I know what's going on. Like, I'm like, "What the hell? Who's Marino? What are you talking about?" "Wait a minute, you don't know?" I said, "No, I have no clue what you're talking about." Then he tells me apparently Marino, his name was Akeem Marino. He is the guy that actually did the crime. The impact that I have felt in my life because of the guilty plea and all that, the guilty plea and it's done a lot of damage to me as far as, you know, relationship-wise. I think that's the biggest thing. I think it almost took my life. I was told by a forensic psychiatrist that they didn't expect me to live past 40. So I was going to kill myself. That's how damaged I am. But I've surpassed that.
Thank you, Gloria. And just in case you all didn't catch that, Mr. Ochoa went on to law school and became an attorney. The next video that we have is a video of Anthony Robinson. The time he served was also 13 years. In 1986, Anthony Robinson was picked up a car for a friend at the University of Houston when university police blocked the parking lot, pulled him out of the car, and arrested him. The police said that Robinson matched the description that a rape victim had given of her attacker. The description was a black man wearing a plaid shirt. The victim also claimed that her attacker had a mustache, which Robinson did not. Robinson was not a student at the university, which he believes encouraged the police to link him to the crime. For those that are tuning in, especially our law students from Thurgood Marshall School of Law, Mr. Robinson went on to attend Thurgood Marshall School of Law, and he graduated from Thurgood Marshall School of Law and is an attorney. This is the story of Anthony Robinson.
Let me tell you a little bit about my case. 1986, I had just ETS in my tour of service, the United States military, United States Cavalry, 1st Cavalry Division, Fort Hood, Texas. Came to Houston to start training managers for a national automotive chain. A friend of mine went to undergraduate school, going to the University of Houston for a PhD in microbiology. Very good friend of mine. I used to proofread some of her articles. The offense occurred on the University of Houston campus. I had never been any further than the westernmost parking lot. The assault occurred somewhere on the eastern side in an auditorium. As I went to pick up her car, which she asked me to pick up her car and have the brakes serviced, as I was backing the car out, the university campus pulled a cruiser in and blocked me in. Asked me to step out of the vehicle, handcuffed me, and then proceeded to put me in a show-up identification, a show-up, where another vehicle came up, someone from, presumably from the rear seat, looked out, saw me, and said that was him. At that point, I was then taken over to the campus police department, printed, photographed, all my clothing was removed, everything was taken. I was placed in a fairly cold waiting cell, and then later transported down to the county jail. You're not lawyers. I understand that. But from that brief description, can somebody say, why didn't this happen? Can you think of something that goes along the lines of, why didn't this happen? Well, shouldn't this have happened? Well, that just seems a little too cut and dried. Well, that doesn't seem right. That could have influenced the identification process. Those are the things that you're going to be doing. In the case of Tim's show-up identification, line up with photo ID, once the witness is imprinted, it's hard to erase that. Once you show a victim, a traumatized victim, within 45 minutes after the assault, someone who is handcuffed in the vicinity, that's going to have an impact. But I will say this about the witness, the victim in my particular case. At trial, she was asked, and she answered. She was asked, do you see the man that you identified on the date that you were assaulted? And her response was, anybody want to guess? Yes. What is unique, or what is different, what is odd about that phrasing? Anybody care to make a stab at it?
I got it.
Please.
She was not asked, do you see the man who violated you? She was asked, do you see the man that you identified in the parking lot?
Very good. Do you follow how things can get way out of kilter if you don't follow the reasoning? And to her, and to my blessing, and to her, I guess in tribute to her, when the evidence finally came back, after 10 years, when the evidence was finally DNA tested and it came back that I was not the perpetrator, the district attorney came up with a very unique and novel way to deal with that. They asked her if she would change her statement that had been written in the offense report. Not physically change it, but change her recollection as to how many men she had had sex with that day. Was there a possibility that she had not remembered having sex with someone else, and could there have been multiple donors or sources of the semen? And she said, to my understanding, absolutely not. What happened to me the way I related to you in the offense report. Personally, I feel that she was abused and violated twice. Once by the person who assaulted her, and again by the justice system that was supposed to give her some protection and a sense of security. For 10 years, the person that violated her was allowed to walk free. And then she was insulted, in my opinion, by being asked to change her statement about what had happened. Why? Not because the facts were different, but because the state wanted to protect the conviction, not protect her, but to protect conviction. Now, understanding that everything is not always black and white, everything is not always smooth, everything is not always the way you would want it to be. But that's why we're counting on you to read these cases, to present these cases in a way that says, this doesn't make sense to me, or I'm not sure this fits. Because in your analysis of the facts, of the evidence that you review and the things that you see, you have the ability to give someone back their life. And I'm certain you'll do your absolute best. Because you're all still here. You haven't taken an opportunity to run away. And you're all awake. So with that, I'm going to say, again, thank you very much for being here. Thank you for being a part of the Innocence Project of Texas. And thank you for the work that you will do now, the work that you will do tomorrow, and the good that will come from that work. I thank you on behalf of those men who will not have a chance to thank you. I thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have one of our two featured presenters, Mr. Anthony Graves. He is currently the president and founder of the Anthony Graves Foundation for Criminal Justice. He is a change maker. He's a published author and a criminal justice activist. Mr. Graves spent 18 and a half years incarcerated for a murder he knew nothing about. 12 of those years were spent in hellish conditions on Texas's death row. He was freed and exonerated on October 27th, 2010. Today, Mr. Graves brings optimism and his unique perspective to the challenge of reforming our broken criminal justice system. Through multiple execution dates and the challenges of keeping his soul intact, Anthony saw the worst that Texas had to offer. He was railroaded by police and Texas Rangers who fabricated evidence, lied in court, and manipulated witnesses. He endured a prosecutor who is now disbarred for what a federal court called egregious prosecutorial misconduct. He hid evidence, bent the law, and pursued an unjust death sentence. In prison, Anthony reflected on a broken system that allows young men and women to languish under harsh sentences. Every night on death row, he planned for the day he'd walk out of prison a free man. He planned to bring a change to a system so often unfair to those who come before him. He planned for the Anthony Graves Foundation and for the good work it is doing till this day. Please join the Anthony Graves Foundation in fulfilling his purpose. I introduce to you Mr. Anthony Graves.
Thank you. Thank you guys, and thank you all for inviting me to be a part of this here. You know, this is kind of special for me, you know, this day of exoneration, of wrongful convictions, because I experienced it. I experienced it firsthand. I know the system in and out because of that experience. It happened to me back in 1992. A horrible crime had taken place. An entire family was murdered. They were brutally beaten, stabbed, shot, house set ablaze, and burned down in an attempt to hide evidence. Right now, this was a bad case. This case that had never happened like this in this small town, which is Somerville, Texas. So imagine the outrage. You know, small town, 500, 600 people, and the entire family was murdered. As a matter of fact, the mayor of that small town came out the next day in the papers and said whoever had done that crime didn't even deserve a trial. They should be caught and hanged. And that's kind of the way they pursued the case, because the next week, after they had the funeral, Texas Rangers were there at the funeral, and a young man there by the name of Robert Carter, who was the father of one of the victims in this brutal crime. He was there when he had kind of burns on him. He had bandages on him from burns, let's say that. And he became a person of interest to the Texas Rangers that was also there. After this funeral, they and I'm getting the story from someone else because I was not at a funeral because I didn't know anyone. But at this funeral, the Texas Rangers approached Mr. Carter and asked if they could speak with him. He agreed. They followed him home. And moments later, they had him in their vehicle and they was taking him to the DPS office to interrogate him. Now, according to Mr. Carter, they interrogated this man over 13 hours. Still today, no one knows what all they were talking about. But what we do know is that they had put the crime on him, but told him that if he just gave them a name of someone else, they would let him go. They just want the other guy because they thought the other guy was the bad guy. So when Mr. Carter heard this here, after many hours of interrogation, he decided to call her name. Now, Mr. Carter was married to a cousin of mine, and he knew my name through my cousin. He and I never had a relationship, but my cousin and I, we had grew up together when we were young in the projects. So as we get older, we were always still cousins, but hadn't seen each other in a while. But I guess she shared her family tree with her husband. So when they asked for a name of someone who could have done this with him and they would let him go, he called my name. Now, the reason why he called my name, according to Mr. Carter, is because on his way to the DPS office, he seen 4 young black men in a Jeep coming off the freeway. And he thought one of those young black men was myself, which wasn't even true. But because he thought he had seen me moments earlier before they took him to the DPS office, he called my name. They asked him for the story as to what happened. He gave them about 7 different stories. After those stories, they turned around and arrested Mr. Carter. And within the next few hours, they knocked on my door. But I didn't hear them knock. My neighbor came and knocked after them. Every time I came to the door, and my neighbor Mike was telling me, he said, "Man, the police looking for you." I said, "Looking for me for what?" He said, "I don't know, man. They just asked, is that your vehicle out there?" And after a couple of few minutes after the conversation, I thanked him and I called my auntie to find out if the police had come to her house looking for me, because every day I would go to my auntie. And so I figured, like, if the police was looking for me, surely they would go by my auntie's home. So I called my aunt and I said, "Hey, Auntie, Mike just told me that the police looking for me. Have they been down to your home?" And she said, "No, why would they be looking for you?" I said, "I don't know." She said, well, why don't you call the police station and find out what's going on? So I said, okay, and I hung up. But better yet, I said, I'm gonna go outside. I'm gonna go downstairs and I'm gonna look for the police because I want to know, why would the police be looking for me? So this is the part where I tell everybody that I talk to. I don't care what you hear me say, what you listen, what you hold on to, what you don't hold on to, but please hold on to this. Don't ever go look for the police, okay? Let them find you. All right, that's their job. And I say that I say that in a joking way, but also in a serious way. Because when I went to look for the police, as I got downstairs, an officer pulled up in a cruiser. He gets out, I stop, he gets out, and he asked me my name, and I tell him. And he said he come there to pick me up to take me to the police station because some officers want to talk to me. And I asked him, can you tell me for what? He said, no, but when we get down there, they'll tell you. So by this time, my neighbor come out, and I tell my neighbor, Mike, I say, hey, Mike, this officer said I have to go to the police station for something. I said, but my mom is on her way home. Could you let her know? I said, matter of fact, I should be right back home because I'm not thinking nothing. I haven't done anything wrong. So whatever it is going to get straightened out. Because, I'm in this naive state. I still believe in the system. So I just feel like whatever it is, we get down there, it's going to get straightened out. So we get down to the police station. They take me into the booking room, ask me to take everything out of my pockets and to have a seat on the bench. I'm not in any handcuffs or anything. So I go and I sit on the bench and I'm just waiting. And it's like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and nobody's talking to me. So finally, as the officers are walking in and out, I started asking questions like, hey, can somebody tell me why I'm here? Because now I done got tired and bored. I'm ready. Whatever it is, let's get to it so I can go home. And one officer said, well, hold on. The officers are coming on their way to talk to you now. About another 5 or 10 minutes later, 4 Texas Rangers and a magistrate walks into the booking room. They asked me to stand up, and which I did. And they just begin reading me my rights. I don't know where this is going. And I'm thinking, do I have a ticket or something? Because is this ticket day? I don't know. But I know I don't have a ticket. And so at the end of reading me my rights, they told me that I had been charged with capital murder. Capital murder? I never even owned a gun or shot a gun, and I'm being charged with capital murder. It's just a mistake. So they asked me, they said, well, would you like to talk to us? You innocent, you have nothing to hide. You want to tell the truth so you can go home. So yeah, you want to talk to them, right? This is that whole being naive, right? Of course, yeah, I want to talk to you guys. So they take me into the interrogation room and they just rip into me, man. I'm just everything but the child of God, right? And to the point where they had me take my shirt off to see if they had any burn marks or whatever on me, and there's nothing on me. So finally, after many hours, the Texas Ranger walks in and looks in my face. He said, you might as well tell us everything because Mr. Carter already have. And I said, Mr. Carter, who is Mr. Carter? Because I don't know the guy. So I'm not thinking this is my cousin's husband. He said, oh, you know Robert. No, he said, you might well tell us everything because Robert already had. And I said, Robert, who is Robert? He said, oh, you know Robert. I said, man, I know a lot of Roberts, who, Robert who? And we kept going around and around, and finally he said, Robert Carter. I guess he was trying to see what kind of response I was going to give. And I kept thinking, Robert Carter. And then it dawned on me, man, that's your cousin's husband, right? And I kind of smiled at it. It was sort of a sense of relief because he don't know me. And this is what I'm telling the ranger, hey, man, that guy don't know me. You sure he said my name? And, man, we just go around and around and around. They don't want to hear what I have to say. They just want me to confess to something I did not do. So finally, I tell him, I say, hey, man, listen, I'll take any test you want to take to prove my innocence. I have nothing to hide. If you want a true serum test, I'll take that. You want a lie detector test, I'll take that or whatever. And then when I said that, the guy paused. He said, you'll take a lie detector test? I said, man, I'll take any test you want. He said, all right, hold on. He said, we're going to set up for you to take a lie detector test. It's going to be down in Houston, which I lived in Brenham, Texas, which is like an hour and 15, 20 minutes away. He said, we'll set it up in Houston, and then when we're ready, we'll take you down there. So I said, fine. So then by this time, he tell the jailer, hey, we want you to put him in a holding cell until we're ready to take him to Houston. So here I am now. I'm in a holding cell for a crime I know absolutely nothing about, but I have convinced them to take me so I can show them that I'm innocent. I want to take this lie test. This is what I want to do. So about 4 or 5 hours afterwards, they come and get me and they take me down, bring me down to Houston for a lie detector test. Which I'm excited about this, because if this test works, I'll go home. So we get here, we get in at the DPS office. They introduced me to the guy that's taking the test, a black guy, right? But little do I know, this black guy works for the Texas Rangers. Nobody told me that. So me and him, we having a little conversation, you know, we're getting comfortable. Then they asked me, "So you ready to take the test?" I said, "Yeah." So we go into the room and he hooks me up to the test and he got me looking at the door, and he's on the side of me. And he's asking me questions, but there's no more than about 3 or 4 questions, same questions. But I notice I hear paper being torn and thrown in the trash. I don't think nothing of it, because I'm just sitting here answering his questions honestly as I can. And he asked me, "Is my name Anthony Graves?" I said, "Yes." "Is Anthony Graves my name?" I said, "Yes." He wanted to know, "Did you have anything to do with the Davis family murders?" "No." "Were you at home? Were you at the Davis family murders home when that crime happened?" "No." "Is your name Anthony Graves?" "Yeah, yeah." And after that, about 10 minutes of that, you know, he said, "Okay, test over." I was like, "Oh man, good. So I can go home." You know, I felt relieved, you know. And he got up, he said, "Not so fast." I said, "What's going on?" He said, "Man, I have to be honest, you didn't pass the test." At that point, I knew what time it was. I said, "So this is what we're gonna do." I said, "Man, I answered all your questions honestly. How can you tell me I didn't pass no test?" By this time, the Texas Rangers walked in. So I guess they've been looking through a one-way mirror. And they walk in, and like you heard Chris Ochoa say, they start playing the good cop, bad cop on me. One of them grab me, take me, twist my arm all up my back, like I have to be on my tiptoes so he don't break my arm. And he pushing me out the door. And when he pushes me out the door, another one comes around from the other side. It stops him, and he takes me. And he act like he's getting on the other officer because he's playing good cop, and he grabs me. But by this time, tears are running down my face, because I've told you the truth, and this is how I'm being treated, right? And so they take me into this other room, and they started grilling me again. So this good cop officer telling me, "Hey man, just tell me everything, man. I want to help you. I help you, man, but you just have to be honest with me, you know." And I'm crying now because I'm frustrated. I'm upset that this man just abused and assaulted me. And here it is, you still trying to get me to say I did something I didn't do. But I'm not going to let you, another man, make me lie on myself. I'm sorry. I'm not cut from that kind of cloth. So I'm telling him, man, I don't know nothing about this guy. I don't even know the guy y'all talking about. So finally, another Texas Ranger walks in. He said, "Mr. Graves, I'm going to be honest with you." He got right up in my face. He said, "I don't believe you did this. But if you don't tell me things I don't know about Mr. Carter, we're going to put this whole case on you. And if you're actually innocent, then don't let no grass grow in your grave." And then told the officer, "Now get him out of here." I tell him, I say, "So I have to go to jail for something I didn't do." He looked at me and he walks off. So now I find myself back in the patrol car, headed to some little county that I don't know anything about at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. All right, I'm going to jail. I get to jail. They already had a cell waiting for me in the middle of the floor. It was a solitary confinement cell. This is my first experience with solitary confinement. So they locked me up that early morning. You know, I'm asking them, can I at least call my mom? Because I know my mom worried. And they finally gave me a phone call, and I was able to call my mom and just tell her where I was, because she was so worried. She's like, what is going on? Where you at? And I'm telling them, they got me in some small town saying I did a crime. I didn't do, you know, and the good thing about me is my family knew I didn't do no crime. I was at home with my family. I don't have that background. And so she's getting upset, and she's telling me, you know, "Hey, it's gonna work out. Don't worry about that. They just can't put nothing on you." Yes, they can. I'm here to tell every one of you guys, yes, they can. And then from there, they'll take a piece of cloth and build a case around it. Because that's what I witnessed in the chief seats that I sat in for 18 and a half years. So the next morning, they come and pick me up and take me over to this other jail. At this other jail, they have Mr. Carter in it, the guy that lied on me. Now, this jail had 10 cells, and it was about 25, 30 people in it. But what they did is they doubled everybody up and left this cell across from Mr. Carter empty. That was my cell. So when they got me there, they took me and booked me in, and they put me in this cell right across from Mr. Carter. When they shut the door and everything, took the handcuffs off me, and I turned around, and who do I see first? I see Mr. Carter. He got bandages wrapped around his head. He's just standing at his door. I don't know him. I don't know if he's crazy. I don't know nothing. But I'm going to ask this man what's going on. And I'm really scared, but I'm in jail for something I don't know anything about. So I asked him, I said, hey man, do you think I really have something to do with a crime like this with you? And he shook his head, no. Well, at first he did me like this. I said, man, I don't care who here. I want them to hear the truth so I can go home. Do you think I did this crime with you? He said, no. I said, man, but for my mother and my children's sake, will you please tell these people the truth so I can go home? And he shook his head, yeah, and he walked off from his door. I stayed in jail 2.5 years waiting on trial. Little did I know at that time, Mr. Carter had begun telling them that I was innocent. But the prosecutor didn't want to hear that. So what happens next is the prosecutor goes and arrests Mr. Carter's wife. Charge her with capital murder. No evidence or nothing. Just charge her with capital murder. Put her in jail for 2 months. And then let her go and told her to keep walking because this case has no statute of limitation on it, right? Then went to Mr. Carter and told Mr. Carter he had to continue to tell what they want him to tell, or that his wife is going to also go to trial. So according to Mr. Carter, he said that he found himself between a rock and a hard place. Here it was that he knew Mr. Graves was innocent, but they was going to go after his wife, who he also knew was innocent. And he knew they were going to convict her for crimes she didn't commit if he didn't lie on Mr. Graves. So he said he chose the lesser of the two evils. He lied on Mr. Graves. I stayed there 2.5 years, and when I got to trial, I was excited. Finally, because see, I'm still in this naive state. Now, naivete is not a bad thing. When you hear people call you naive, don't take that as an insult. Because naivete saved my life. Because if I really thought that they could do what they had done to me and then kill me, I probably would have went crazy before I even went to trial. So naivete actually saved my life. I still believed in the system. I still believed that justice was going to prevail, but I didn't know when. So when I get to trial, they tell me that Mr. Carter, they're trying to get Mr. Carter to testify. But we don't know if he's going to testify yet, they say. So my attorney is telling me this, and I'm telling my attorney, I hope he testifies. And my attorney's like, why? I said, man, because this guy don't know me. How this guy gonna get to sit up in the front of me and just lie on me like this? Now, my naivete still kicking in. So my attorney tell me, he said, Ms. Graves, I'm gonna tell you this. If they let him testify, they know what he's gonna testify to. Trust me, they're not gonna just let him get up there as their state witness if they don't know what he's gonna say. And I'm starting telling him, man, I don't care about that, man. That dude is not gonna just sit up there and lie on me like this. That dude don't know me. Well, here was my introduction to the way our criminal justice system really works. This is when I started realizing nobody's in here seeking the truth. Everybody is seeking a conviction on one side, and here my attorneys and them representing me, seeking for us to be free on the other side, but everybody's playing the game. I don't really see why everybody's gravitating toward the evidence. Because the evidence alone would have something on. But everybody got their mind made up that they're gonna play defense, they're gonna play offense. And everybody's playing to win. That is the thing that is wrong with our system when we get in trial. Everybody plays to win. Nobody seeks the truth. Everyone plays to win. So I'm sitting there in these cheap seats and I'm watching these two going at it, sparring partners going at it, playing to win. I'm sitting there. And I'm telling my attorney when they bring Mr. Carter up, this guy don't know me. Ask him anything about me. He can't tell you nothing about me. And one of my attorneys say, trust the legal process. Don't worry about it. Just trust the legal process. But I don't trust the legal process no more. I've had 2.5 years of this. I don't witness that everybody is playing to win. Nobody is seeking the truth. So now I'm starting to lose faith. As we in trial, they bring Mr. Carter up there and they ask Mr. Carter to point out the guy that was with him during the crime. Mr. Carter couldn't even look me in my face. He turned his head and pointed his finger at me. Now, understand, my attorneys had already told me, no matter what goes on in court, I don't want you to respond to it. Don't shake your head, don't get upset, nothing, because you don't know how the jury is going to take that. Oh man, when the jury, we could talk about that all day, because the jury is the most uninformed, who's making the most important decision in that room. That's what I realized. They don't know nothing about the law. They come off the streets, and our system is not educating them enough to make the best choice that they can. There are games even played with them, suppressing evidence, certain things not being allowed. That doesn't complete the whole picture. These are things that need to be addressed also when it comes to the jury. Why aren't they not being educated on these cases? Why are they just being picked off the street and told what to do and not being educated? Anyway, we can get to that some other time. So as I'm sitting there in trial and this man points at me and I don't respond, I don't react, but I'm so filled with emotions on the inside because I was hoping that this guy would tell the truth. I want to go home. My mother's sitting out here, my children sitting out here, my family sitting out here. I want to go home. I didn't do anything. It's not me. And I'm hoping that this guy just tell the truth. But he didn't. And I found out years later why he didn't. Because he was afraid that the prosecutors were going to go back after his wife. He was trying to protect her. So he lied on me. I ended up being sentenced, being convicted, and now I have to go to what you call the punishment phase of the case. It's a whole trial in itself. And my attorney is telling me, he said, man, I want to put your family up on the stand to talk about who you are so you can save your life. And I kept telling him, no, man, no. He said, why, man? Because these folks will kill you, but I believe in you and I want to save your life first. I said, man, I don't want my family involved in this. This is a joke. How you going to take me from my home and put me on death row or put me in prison for a crime I don't even know anything about? Did happen in another town I don't even go to. He said, man, I just want to save your life. So reluctantly, I agreed. And I let my mother got up there and she talked about her son, how her oldest son was the strength of the family, da-da-da-da-da. Then my sister got up there. She talked about her brother, how her brother suspended his nightlife to babysit her son while she went off to school at night. Then my son get up there. My son had sickle cell anemia. And every time he would have a crisis, I would be at the hospital with him. When he had to have a blood transfusion, I would be at the hospital with him. And I'm listening at my son telling 12 people who don't know me, and the judge and the prosecutors, I need my dad. My dad is my strength. Please don't kill my dad. I'm listening at my son begging people who don't even know his father to save his father's life for something he didn't even do. And that all fell on deaf ears, because when you look at that jury box, I had 11 white people over there and 1 black man. Now this is just the reality of this. That happens too many times in our system. We're not represented in that box over there too much. This is why you have to vote. Voting is not just so that you vote for a president, but it's also so that you can go sit on that jury and make sure that they're not messing over our children, because they are. Because they don't know you. They don't come from the same community you come from. So I'm looking at 11 whites and 1 black sitting over there in that jury box, listening to my son. And after he got down, an hour and a half later, they come back and sentence me to death for a crime I knew absolutely nothing about. So my attorney tell me, he says, I'm gonna go back there and talk to the jury and find out why did they make this decision. He goes back there, and a few minutes later, he come back and tell me that one of the jurors told him that he was too boring. And because he was too boring, he made the decision to go ahead and convict me. One of them said that I didn't show any remorse. But my attorney told me don't respond to nothing. I'm taking my attorney's advice. But the jury said I showed no remorse. So that's why she convicted me. They say there was no evidence that led them to believe that I did the crime. It was because I showed no remorse and because my attorney was boring. That's what I got convicted on. And then they sentenced me to death, man. They're gonna kill me because I was boring. My attorney was boring and I showed no remorse. That was the only reason that they convicted me and was gonna kill me. I ended up going to death row. A week later, I go to death row. Come on, man. All I heard about death row, that's just some bad people down there. And now I got to go live amongst them. And they get me down there and they take me to my first wing to live on, which was J23. I get to J23, and when I get there, it's like 3 stories up. I hear all this noise, it's very loud and rowdy. And it got all this mesh wire on the bars and on the doors, and it's dank, and it's bad, and things smell, and I get there and I find out that this is the wing that they put all those on, that the bad actors. So I asked the officer, I said, well, why did I have to come down here? I just got here. He said, well, because we have nowhere else to put you. Death row was overcrowded, man. 530 some people were down there waiting to die. Most of them were guilty. Many of them had mental illness problems. Some of them was innocent. Some of them deserved lesser included offenses. But they were all meeting the same fate because they couldn't afford our justice. They were there to die. And now I'm there. And they put me in 3-row 10 cell on J23. I've been there about 30, 40 minutes before a porter came up to my door with a brown bag and had something in it. And he said, hey man, here you go. I said, what is this here? He said, dude downstairs sent this to you. What is it? He said, man, he just told me to get that to you. So, all right, so I grabbed it and I opened it up and it was this book. It's this book by this, can't think of her name right now, but it was about history and all she had went through. And basically, the note in the book was telling me, hey man, you're not the first to go through this, you're not going to be the last to go through this, but keep your head up. Keep fighting. All right. I don't know the dude, I don't respond to nobody, so I just lay down and after I clean up the cell, I lay down and I put my headphones on that they had gave to me. I turn the music on that they had, you can plug the headphones in the wall and turn on a radio station. And I got in the bunk and I laid there for a whole week. I don't want to talk to nobody. I don't want to be here. I laid there a whole week with my headphones on, and I was just every minute of the day, I was thinking about, well, what would I be doing at home? Where would I be at this time? What would I be doing here? This is how I was starting to live on my memories of my life outside those walls. So finding someone called my name and say, hey man, 310 cell. Yeah, he say, come outside to wreck, man. I didn't want to socialize with no one. But some say go outside because I can't make them think that I'm some scary guy. I mean, that's a sign of weakness. So I said, all right. So the next day I go outside and this guy named Andre introduced himself to me. And he told me, he said, man, I heard about your case on the radio. And he was like, look, I'm just going to let you know, you got to fight for your life. They're going to kill you down here. And you need to get you some pen pals and you get the people in your corner. And he started telling me what I needed to do to help myself, right? Bringing people into my life, telling them about my situation, which I started doing. I started writing people all over the world. I'll write to anybody that will write to me. I don't care if your child was 6 years old and wrote me a letter. I would write back to that child and say, can you please ask your parents to help save my life? I'm innocent. That's all I wanted to talk about. I built a coalition of people around this world who came together and made a loud voice for my innocence. That's how I got the attention of the people over here. People whose backyard I had been in for 18 and a half years, who didn't even care what was going on. I finally got your attention now because it took me to go overseas and for people overseas to become so frustrated that they reached out over here. And then you guys responded. I spent 12 and a half years on death row alone. I experienced 2 execution dates. I remember the first execution date I experienced. They came to my cell, 2 officers, told me that the major wanted to see me down at his office. Okay. So we get ready, they stripped me out, they handcuffed me, they rolled my doors, and they escorted me to the major's office. When I get down there to the major's office, the major come in, and, how you doing, Mr. Graves? I'm doing okay. He said, well, I wanted to bring you down here today and let you know that the state has decided on a certain date, they're gonna execute you. I got an execution date. And we want to know what you want to be your last meal, what you want us to do with your body. I mean, can you imagine having that conversation with someone about your life and you haven't done nothing wrong? But here's the thing for me. At that moment, that changed my whole way of thinking about what I was going through. Of course, I was frustrated, angry, upset, and all of that for having to go through an deal with an unjust system. And I'm innocent. But at that moment, when he told me that the state had decided that they were going to kill me, that was a thought that came through my head that changed my whole life. I said, I'm just going to live till I die. They can't stop that. I'm just going to live till I die. It wasn't me giving up. It was me giving myself my freedom. Because now that I know that I can live till I die, there's nothing you can do to me. So that empowered me. That empowered and encouraged me to continue to fight for myself until I die. That was it. I'm just going to live till I die. So at that point, I started beginning to pay attention to all the things that was going on around me. I started reading other cases, talking to other people, and learning about the injustice of our criminal justice system. I meet men that were 45 years old, mentally ill, peeing in the bed. They had to give them plastic. Can't read or write. We killed him. I met men that was coming down there 17, 18 years old and 2 years going totally crazy. And they kill him. I met innocent people who was begging for, hey man, if you know anybody, just tell them about my case. They kill him. And so now I'm sitting in this room and I'm thinking about my own mortality. They're killing everybody, man. They don't care. They're killing everybody. When they send you to death row, it's to execute you. It's not to find out if you're innocent or not, if you're mentally ill or not. It is to execute you. And we are out here supporting that. They're killing everybody. Sometimes twice a day. They were killing 2 people a day. I stayed down there 12 and a half years. I witnessed over 415 executions. Most of them I knew. I had been down there with them. So finally, in October 27th of 2000, let's take that back. Let's just say in 2006, March of 2006, my case was overturned by the 5th Circuit Court of Appeals. Now, I know we got some lawyers here, so you know much about the 5th Circuit. The 5th Circuit is one of our most conservative courts in our nation. Jesus could come down and testify on your behalf and they still gonna vote against you. That's how conservative they are, okay? They gave me a 3-0 vote in my favor, citing egregious prosecutorial misconduct. Basically saying that had you not put this man, basically saying that this man didn't even deserve to be in jail, let alone on death row. So we're gonna give y'all a chance to correct this or let him go. So retry him in 180 days or let him go. Well, this small county decided that no judge, no 5th Circuit gonna tell them what to do. They're gonna retry this case. So 4 months after my ruling, the sheriff come down from the small county, pick me up, take me back on bench warrant. But I'm thinking that they're taking me back because now they're finna apologize to me and I'm finna go home. They've already executed Mr. Carter for the lies he told. So the 5th Circuit ruled that Mr. Carter perjured, or testimony was perjured. So that's nothing against that in the grave. So I'm going back and they finna apologize and I'm going home. Listen, when I get home, when they get me back to the jail, that was on a Friday. That Monday we had a hearing. And so when we get to the hearing that Monday morning, my attorney, who is Nicole Castro, and I think she's listening, I just want to say hello to her because she's the woman that saved my life. She fought for me. She did what an attorney is supposed to do. She represented me well. And so when we get there Monday, I asked Nicole, so what's going on? She said, I don't know, but let me go over here and find out. Let me talk to the attorney and find out. One of my other attorneys, because they were over there talking to the prosecutor. Come to find out that this wasn't the prosecutors who had asked for this hearing. This was the judge. Now, the judge is the daughter of the judge that convicted and sentenced me to death, right? He had retired, so this is his daughter. And she's pushing this case for another trial. So she's meeting the criteria to pursue another trial by getting me up there within 180 days, doing an introduction between defense attorneys and prosecutors, and now all of a sudden that's the beginning of the trial. They started putting my trial off. I ended up sitting there 4 years and 3 more months. Every year they was putting my trial off again and again. What are you going to try me on? There's no evidence. I'm innocent. So they started coming to me talking about making deals, taking a life sentence. What would I take? They want to do another whole, if I would be willing to do another lie detector test. Of course, yes. The truth don't change. So I'm telling them I'll do a lie detector test, whatever. I've been in jail 4 years now. So we go to Dallas. They take me to Dallas to do another lie detector test. Now, I don't know that the guy who's doing the lie detector test used to be a police officer. Everybody's in the system. So when we get there, the guy sits me in the chair. We get there about 7:30 that morning. They take me into the room and they sit me in the chair, the lie detector test. The guy said, I'll be back. Just sit here for a minute. He walks out. He stays gone about 2 hours. Then he comes back, asks me how I'm doing. I'm good. He leaves again. He goes for about another 2 hours. I sat in that chair from about 7:30 that morning to about 4:30 that evening before he said, are you ready to take the test? Now just understand what that is. By this time, I'm anxious and everything. I've slept in this chair. I've ate in this chair, everything. And now he comes and says, you ready to take the test? Yeah, I'm ready to take the test. But I'm nervous now because you got me so hyped because I'm ready to go home. I'm anxious. I've been sitting in this chair since 7:30 this morning. It's 4 o'clock. I'm ready to get this over with, go home. He asked me questions, I answered. I'm feeling good. It's over with. I've been able to tell the truth again. Tell me why this man come back and tell, Nicole was up there with me, that I didn't pass the test. I said, here we go again. Here we go again. How am I not passing a lie detector test if these things are so accurate? And I'm telling the truth. So I come to the conclusion that they got the right name when they call them lie detector tests, because they can make them lie on you. I found that out the hard way. So now I got to go back to jail. And here we go again with these deals, with what I take this, what I do that. I'm not taking anything. Like I told Nicole, they're gonna free me or they're gonna kill me. That's not gonna be a compromise. I'm standing on truth. That's just it. So we do this for about 4.5 years. I went through so many prosecutors. They would come and learn about the case and they would get off the case. Texas Rangers, the Attorney General office got on the case, and one day they went to the judge and said they had to get off the case. Judge didn't want them to get off the case, so she's upset with them. She want to know why are y'all getting off the case? They wouldn't tell her. But they knew. This man is innocent, and they didn't want to have nothing to do with it. Our governor, who was the Attorney General at the time, didn't want to have nothing to do with this. So they got off the case and kicked the case down the road. I sat in jail 2 weeks without a prosecutor on my case. No prosecutor, because the prosecutor asked to recuse themselves, the whole office. So everybody else got off the case. I'm sitting in jail on $1 million bond with no prosecutors on my case. The judge decided to put $1 million bond on me. After we go through the federal judge and the federal judge give us a $50,000 bond, I make that bond, and the judge sends her people down there to rearrest me, and she put me on $1 million bond without nobody asking for the bond yet. So I go back to jail and I'm sitting there and I'm just thinking, this is just crazy. This is crazy. So one day, October 27, 2010, the officer came to my double steel door isolated cell and said, Mr. Graves, come go with me. I said, where are we going? He said, just come go up the front, to the front with me. And I said at this time, because I know a little bit like about Wainwright, hey man, I can't go nowhere with you out my attorney, right? I've been through this long enough to know that anytime I'm gonna talk to you guys, there's gonna be an attorney around. So he said, man, just come go with me. But by the time we get up there, I see this tape on the door say interrogation room. Oh, I'm not going in there. Oh, heck no. But when he opened up the door, I see Nicole and my other attorney, Jimmy Phillips Jr. Sigh of relief came over me. So I go in the room, and when I enter, Nicole stands up. Now I see that Nicole is fighting back tears. In my mind, this is just some more bad news, but I don't care. I got my shield and my sword. You're gonna kill me or you're gonna free me. There's not gonna be a compromise here. I've seen you execute 415 people, and none of them came back and told me how bad it was. Matter of fact, half of them was glad to be put to rest so that they didn't have to continue to live in that hell called death row. So now, here it is. Nicole standing up there, she's batting back tears. And she asked me, she said, Anthony, do you remember when you told me that God was good? Because I never gave up on God. Because God never did this to me. Man did. God sustained me and brought me through. So I never gave up on God. So when she asked me that, I said, yeah. But in my mind, I'm thinking, I'm hungry. What this has to do with it, I want to eat, because it's about 3-something that evening and I'm hungry. Now, I ain't thinking that what I was about to hear was going to happen, but I'm hungry. And she looked at me, she said, well, I just want you to know, man, that God is good because the state just dismissed all the charges against you. And they didn't dismiss them because they lost evidence, or they didn't dismiss them because witnesses have died. Ms. Ziegler had dismissed the charges against you because she believes in your innocence. Now, Ms. Ziegler is a prosecutor that I think we probably all know on him. Okay, she has her show cold case out. She's well known for putting a lot of men on death row. I mean, she's put more men on death row than some states. And she was looking to put me back on death row. But as she got involved in the case, started investigating the case, had brought investigators in to investigate the case, she realized this man is innocent. So she called all of her investigators in one by one to ask them what they thought. And she's telling me this. And she said, Mr. Graves, every one of my investigators said, this man is innocent. So that's why she moved to have me released. So on this day, when Nicole is telling me this, I'm like, this is going over my head because I didn't expect this. I'm still fighting. So I asked her, well, what do I do now? And she had brought me some clothes to put on. And she was like, well, put these clothes on, let's go, right? I didn't even know my clothes size. I had been there so long. By this time, the officer walks in and he said, Mr. Grady, would you like to go get your property out your cell? I said, yeah, but I didn't want that property. I was so discombobulated because I had dreamed this for so many nights, only to wake up still on death row. And I just felt like if this was going to be another dream, this was so real, how was I going to come back from this one? How was I going to come back from this? So I was afraid to accept what she had told me. So finally, this officer took me and we were walking back down the hall. And as we were walking down the hall, it dawned on me, man, this is over. It's over. So by the time we get to the cell inside, he asked me, he said, what do you want? I said, man, just give me my pictures and my legal work. I don't want nothing else. I'm just ready to go. Because I don't want y'all changing y'all mind. Y'all play too much. I'm ready to go, right? So he take everything I had, put it in this little box. I went in when I was 26 years old. Now, October 27, 2010, I'm coming out at 45 years old with everything I own in a little box. Just in a little box. They walked me out the side, and the reason why they did it that way, because Miss Sealand then wanted to bring me to the court the next morning. And they wanted to apologize to me in front of my family and friends and let everybody know that I was innocent. But the judge said that she did not want that hoopla in her courtroom and they can let me go now. I didn't care. I liked what the judge said. I was ready to go. So I'm on my way out the door with everything I own in a little box. And at this time, CBS 48 Hours was doing a story on my case. Okay. And Richard Schlesinger, the host, was there to greet me as I got out the door. Right. I don't mean to brag, but that's why I had his Emmy today. I went from death row to an Emmy. Okay. Because this story was so compelling. When they asked me how did I feel after coming out of prison, I didn't know what to tell them. I said, man, I feel great, because this was the first day in 18 and a half years I've had the sunshine of freedom on my face. Because I've been in the building. They've been trying to kill me. And so he was like, well, do your mom know? Do your mom know? And Nicole told him, well, no, nobody knows because they just made this decision. So he said, well, call your mother. And he put this phone in my face, and I'm telling him, man, I don't know how to use that. It was a cell phone. I've been gone for 18 and a half years. When I left, cell phones were this big, right, that you plug in the car. And now it's this small, and you can call around the world, you got all these buttons, and I didn't know how to use it. So Nicole had my mother's number, and she said, well, I'll call his mother. I have her number. Let me tell you a little story about my mom before I go there. So when I was back in the county jail, they had a phone, and I could call my mother collect all the time. Every time I would call my mom, one of the things we talk about was she cooking today. You know, it's my mother's cooking. I haven't ate my mother's cooking in 18 and a half years. And she's telling me, oh, well, I'm cooking this and I'm cooking that. Then I tell her, well, don't tell me. She said, all right, well, next time you ask, I won't tell you, right? It's just us joking around, making a day. So this day when I get out, and Nicole said, well, I'll call your mom, right? We're standing in the parking lot of the jail. And Nicole calls my mother. And I hear her voice. She said, hello? And Nicole said, Miss Curry, I think I have somebody here you want to talk to. And she handed me the phone. I hear my mother's voice again. She said, hello? I said, Mama. She said, huh? I said, what you cooking? She said, who is this? I said, this is your son, because she didn't know. And all I heard was just screaming, and she just, she said, who is this? I said, it's your son. I'm coming home. That was the first time in 18 and a half years I was able to tell my mom, I'm coming home. Can you imagine that? Do you understand what that did for my mother? She was also on death row with me. That day we both got off death row. I just gave her the news. I'm coming home. She lost it, right? She lost it. So 20 minutes later, I was in my mother's front yard, hugging my kids, hugging my family, and hugging my mom for the first time in 18 and a half years. Do you know what that means? No one really understands how bad it is, how lonely it is without a human touch. And you took that away from me for 18 and a half years. Nobody understands that. We are built for human touch. This is why we have universal hugs and handshakes. And to have that taken from you for 18 and a half years for something you know absolutely nothing about. Can you imagine what that hug felt like for me and my mother? So my story ended in a good way. Justice finally prevailed like I had hoped it would. Naivete saved my life so that I could stay sane, so that I could come out here and let you know what was going on. Let you know that our death penalty, our death sentence, it is not fair. It is not accurate. We are killing innocent people. To let you know that our criminal justice system, it's not broke. Let's stop talking about it's broke. This is the way it was designed. This is the way it was designed because it was designed before I even had rights. It was designed to keep me down, to oppress me and my family, to oppress me and my people. So let's quit talking about it's broke. If it was broke, we would have rushed to fix it a long time ago. This system is designed to do exactly what it's doing. And we need to throw it out with the bathwater and rebuild. We need a new system. We do not need to keep tinkering with a broken system, because it is broke, people. It's broke. We need a new one. So I just want to say at the end of the day, I've dedicated my life to this work. I've dedicated my life by sharing my story to criminal justice reform. Because without me, you would not know what is going on. You would keep speculating. You would have your assumptions. You would think you know because you read a book. I'm telling you the truth because I live this. This is my experience, and I'm sharing it with you because I'm asking you to help me change this system. It is broke. People are dying. People are being sentenced to prison for things they didn't do. Come on, people. This is our system. On that, I'll leave this. Thank you, guys, and I appreciate y'all listening to my story.
I think I'll chime right in. Anthony, you have so many people in tears. I'm reading through the chats, and I can see that you've moved, as you always do, people, because nothing moves anything more than your story. Sorry, you don't need to introduce me. I'll just go right in.
Tell them to donate, though, since they're crying.
Yeah, no, don't worry, I will at the end. So, yeah. So again, thank you for having me. You know, it's very difficult to go behind Anthony. It's always humbling to be on a panel with Anthony, for no matter what information I'm going to bring, no matter what I'm going to share with you, nothing compares to hearing his powerful and compelling story. It is a story of injustice, but it's also a story of resilience, of fighting, and of faith. And no one can tell it better than Anthony. Nothing illustrates the inequities and the injustices of wrongful convictions better than the stories of those who have experienced in the flesh, like Anthony, the hardship, the pain, and the terrible consequences of losing years of their lives to an irrevocably flawed system of injustice. There is no silver lining to anyone who has been imprisoned for a crime that they did not commit. But in the case of those who are fortunate to be exonerated, like Anthony, there is a shining light. Because for me, they move into the world like beacons in the dark. They move forward into the world that deprived them of so much. And they move sharing their stories, disseminating vital information to the public at large, and thus moving the needle, as he just said, towards a greater understanding of how a system of racial disparity and intentional wrongdoing erodes public confidence and trust in the very fabric of our system of justice. Anthony, I am always in awe of your spirit of generosity and grace, of your spirit of forgiveness. And I'm grateful that you keep spreading the word. And Anthony has a foundation, which he did not mention, but I urge you to look it up. And also, he's a published author. Anthony has written a wonderful book, which he's often been kind enough to sign for our students at Thurgood Marshall School of Law. But I urge you to also donate to his foundation, because foundations like the one Anthony has are able to represent other people. And they are, in fact, ambassadors for all the many people who remain in jail. You know, when someone is wrongfully convicted, Anthony Robinson mentioned this, and Anthony was my student. And Anthony Robinson, in all the years I knew him at law school, never, ever told me that he had been exonerated. I learned it when he was hooded at the graduation, when I think it was Senator Ellis that told us his story. And I remember sitting in that stage thinking, oh my God, I never knew any of that. And how can this spirit of grace that really is imbued in all of these exonerees, to me, is just so powerful and so amazing. But when someone is wrongfully convicted, there are many victims. Obviously, the worst impact of a wrongful conviction falls on those who are innocent. But as Anthony Robinson said, the victims of the crimes are victimized twice. They're victimized by the crime itself, and then they are victimized by the failure of a system to punish the person who actually deserves the full power of the law. Because the wrongdoer, of course, is free to commit and endanger other crimes and endanger other members of society, which in fact they have done. Finally, the criminal justice system suffers because what exoneration reveals, and you've heard it today, is that the system cannot be trusted, that the system is unfair, and that the art of the law does not always bend toward justice. I'm going to mention three people who have been actually executed. Anthony has been witness to 415 executions. I want to mention Ruben Cantu, who was executed in 1993. Carlos de Luna, who was executed in 1999, and his story is very, very sad. We're running a little bit out of time, so I'll just move on. But I also want to mention Cameron Todd Willingham. Nationwide, we have had 2,674 executions. There have been 172 exonerations in Texas from death row defendants. 13 have been in Texas, 172 in total, 13 in Texas. I'd like to honor the individuals who were exonerated from death row by mentioning their names. Anthony Graves, Robert Springsteen, Michael Toney, Michael Blair, Ernest Ray Willis, Ricardo Aldape Guerra, Munir Deeb, Federico Macias, Clarence Bradley, John Skelton, Randall Dale Adams, Vernon McManus, and Alfred Dwayne Brown, who is number 13. Mr. Brown continues to fight for compensation from the state of Texas for the 10 years he spent in jail. He has been declared actually innocent, but the state controller and the AG are continuing to deny compensation. There's a wonderful episode 8 of the Innocence Files on Netflix that you may want to watch about his story. Together, these 13 men served 156 years for crimes they did not commit. This alarming number should be a wake-up call that our criminal justice system is deeply flawed and that the high price of its inequity is paid by those who are wrongfully convicted. Wrongful convictions are particularly significant here in Texas because we are a very active death penalty case. So let me give you some statistics. Since 1976, we have executed 1,524 individuals in the United States. Of that number, 570 have been executed in Texas. Anthony was witness to 415 because he spent 18 years in jail. That's 37% of all the executions in the United States. Florida has executed 99, but yet Florida has had 30 exonerations and we've only had 13. Basically, that speaks to the problems that we have in Texas in terms of turning those over, like Anthony mentioned, because of the Fifth Circuit and our own Court of Criminal Appeals. Courts that have been in many instances recalcitrant to actually reverse cases. And Anthony is a perfect example of what happens. Even when there is ample proof that you are innocent, it's not that easy to get out of the system. Sometimes because there is a refusal to give in to the fact that it was a wrongful conviction. Sometimes because the Court of Criminal Appeals simply will not review the evidence. And of course, when it goes to the Supreme Court, it's not always reversed. I want to leave on a good note, however, because we have people like Anthony with his torch marching on, and I know that he will continue to do this, and nothing moves anyone like Anthony. But earlier this month, the state of Mississippi dropped charges against Curtis Flowers. He served 23 years in jail after his conviction. Flowers was tried 6 times for the same crime, despite his steadfast claim of innocence. The Supreme Court reversed, finding that the state illegally removed potential Black jurors. Anthony also alluded to that. We have a huge problem with jury selection and what the jury understands and what the jury can do. 10 days later, in September, Robert Dubois was officially exonerated in Florida after spending nearly 37 years in jail. His conviction was based on a bite mark, which is now found to be junk science. So all I want to say at the end, because I know we don't have a whole lot of time, and some of you may have some questions for Anthony, but today, in light of all the social injustices that we have seen in the past 6 months, all the injustice that we have come throughout the country that we have seen, it's more important than ever that we work together to form a system or to reform a system that is deeply flawed and whose mistakes cannot be tolerated. I urge you to get involved. I urge you to support programs like Anthony. And those of you who are young lawyers or your lawyers to be that are listening, this is the world that you're coming into. This is, we're passing the torch to you to make a change, because without you, we will not be able to do it. Without lawyers like Nicole, who were able to give all of their time to a cause, we will not be able to prevail. So I have faith that we will ultimately, and I know that this is in your lives and in your hands to make those changes. Anthony, I'm always humbled to be in your presence. I think that what you have to share with everyone is more moving than anything I could ever say. So thank you again. And thank you to the Earl Court Institute for inviting me.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you so much to both of our presenters. That is Professor Anna Otero, and there is also, we have the honor of having Mr. Anthony Graves here today. Now we have a small opportunity for some Q&A. So if you want to put your Q&A in the chat, or if you want to put your Q&A in the Q&A box, please do so at this time. I saw one question. Okay, so from Gabrielle Davis, she says, I'm curious, you have a very touching story. I'm assuming she's directing this towards Mr. Graves. I'm curious as to whether or not another judge was assigned to the case, since the second judge was the daughter of the judge who convicted him the first time. I know he was tried in a small town, and this isn't always possible, but I am curious.
Wow. Well, thanks for the question. I'm curious too. But I would say that when we realized that this judge was pushing this case for trial, and it dawned on us that she was even trying to get perjured testimony admitted into the second trial, that she wasn't doing everything in good faith, that she was trying to finish what her father had started. We asked the judge to turn over any evidence that she had, that she knew about the case, that would cause her to have to recuse herself. She was the daughter of the judge that had sentenced me to death. Instead of her turning over any information to us, what she did is call for a hearing that we didn't request and wasn't even prepared for. She got the district judge that was over her, Judge Owens or whatever, to come down there and do this hearing. And because we wasn't prepared for a hearing, because we was just asking her, was that any information that she had about this case that would cause her to recuse herself? We get to court, we thinking that's the conversation, and find out that we're in the middle of a hearing. Well, my attorneys wasn't prepared for a hearing, so the judge denied us and allowed her to stay on the bench, because we was asking that she remove herself and allowed her to stay on the case. So yeah, it was from a small town, but you have to understand that in that circle of professional friends, it is hard to get a judge removed, especially when they don't want to be. And she felt like she could do her job, which she was showing us already that she couldn't, because she was allowing perjured testimony into another trial. She wanted to hold on and make sure that she finished what her father started. That's about the best way I can answer that.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Okay, the next question is, where does one look to see cases that have been reduced to a lesser charge for a felony charge? I'm not quite sure. Professor Otero?
Yeah, I read that, but I'm not sure that I understand what is being asked.
Okay.
I don't know that there is any record of any such cases available to the public. I'm not sure that I know how to answer that question, because I'm not really sure I understand that question.
Yeah, I don't either.
But I will say, so there's a question though about how can I contribute and donate, and as I said before, Anthony does have a nonprofit foundation. He accepts volunteers and he accepts, of course, donations. Without that, he cannot function. The Texas Coalition to Abolish the Death Penalty has a wonderful website with lots of great information, and they also accept donations. So there's a lot of different, groups and associations that you can contribute to in order to make a change.
Okay, wonderful. Let's see. here. I have, okay, so the question from Ashley Lewis, what are ways that we as law students can get involved or contribute to the Innocence Project? I put a comment in the chat, but the Innocence Project through the Earl Carl Institute is hiring each semester, including the summer. We are hiring rising 2Ls, 2Ls, and 3Ls only. And from the director of the Innocence Project, she says, Whitney Cubic says, to get involved in the Innocence Project, you can either enroll in the Innocence Project course next semester or volunteer for us at Earl Carl Institute. She says, please reach out to me directly, and she put her email address in the chat. Okay, I think that answers all of our questions. And I want to thank each and every one of you, Judge Otero, as well as Mr. Graves, for your participation in this. You have made this day really, really remarkable. We've had, it looks like we've had over 100 attendees, both on Facebook. We had about 50 on Facebook and 50 here in Zoom, so we thank you so much. The other thing is that I will be remiss without saying, again, the Earl Carl Institute, we were the hosts today. We offer free legal services to the community on not only Innocence Project related issues, also foreclosure defense. We also have a juvenile justice program, and we hire students to assist the staff attorney. So you'll be assigned a supervising staff attorney if that's something that you so choose. The other thing is that we also rely on donations. And so we ask that, and I think we're going to place the Earl Carl Institute's website in the chat, but we ask that you please consider us, especially as the year is coming to an end, maybe putting year-end donations to us. We really do appreciate everything. And with that being said, I don't know if, okay. With that being said, thank you so much. And this concludes our presentation.
Goodbye. Thank you.